And we're live!
Hey!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of our Sistersong harp streams, which will be running until April. So we're very excited to have whoever's here with us, and we'll just kind of do a little introduction to both me and Lucy so you can get to know us and so we can give people time to turn up and get settled. Lucy, do you want to start by saying who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I was just getting my feedback there because I had two windows open. That was a really stupid thing to do.
We're still muddling through the tech, so if in chat, if there are any problems or audio levels or things, let us know, because this is still a bit of an experiment.
Yes. All good, but I have Becky here who does all of the tech stuff, which is really good because I just write the books, you know. So hi, I'm Lucy Handsome / Holland for this book. I am a fantasy writer, as you can see. I'm actually sitting in my bedroom right now, and I have a big map of Middle Earth on the wall behind me, which is like a dead giveaway, and my enormous fantasy library. I have had a trilogy published with Tor UK called the Worldmaker Trilogy, which started with Starborn. That was 5 years ago now, so yeah, some time. And I'm the author of Sistersong, yay! Which is out on April 15th in 2021. So really excited about this book because it's a big departure for me, having come from the epic fantasy field where I could make shit up. I now have to, I can still make shit up, but I have to do research. So it was quite exciting writing a historical fantasy rather than just an epic fantasy. So yeah, you've got that to look forward to next year. I'm really excited to share the book with you all. And when I told Becky the idea for Sistersong, I don't think I'd even written it. I think I might have just done an outline. This is like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't you say, Becky, that you were like, bone harp, that sounds really creepy and macabre and cool, and I could totally make that. And
yeah, so I've always had this where I've wanted to make like a bone harp, but I wanted to make it kind of electronic, and there are going to be some electronics involved. So for those of you who have loved the coding craft streams, there'll be more. This one's going to sing by itself. So that will be fun if I can make that work. But I'd always wanted to do, like, I was researching laser harps and things at the time and how to make those, and I was looking for a harp. I was looking for a harp project, and then Lucy said, "I'm writing a harp book," and it was like, we could make something work here. So we did, or so we will. I mean, we haven't yet. We're working on it.
We're speaking from the future when the harp is already made.
If you're watching this in May, then the harp is made. Hopefully. Yes, and for those who don't know me, there's only a few people I can see in the chat, and I know a couple of you. I'm Becky, and I'm a maker, editor, tech crafter, who does all sorts of things and has been doing ridiculous craft streams with Yogscast Kim, who is sitting in chat saying horrible things already. So we've been doing those for most of lockdown since March, and thought, be good to try and do something for Sistersong and try and share the process with you, not just the harp at the end product. I mean, hopefully. And I mean, Lucy, this is sort of my idea. We've discussed it briefly, but if the world has returned to normal by the time Sistersong is out, I would love the harp to tour at book launches with Sistersong, and I think that's what we're hoping for, isn't it?
It's like the kids authors who have like picture books, and then they have like Topsy and Tim, the puppets that come out with the picture books. It's like a really dark version of that.
There'll be a really creepy, macabre death harp touring at the same time as the book launches and singing songs.
One of my characters gets made into a harp, and here's the harp.
So speaking of, because you've just dropped that a bit here, So where the original, so I don't know, did you start the idea for Sistersong before you knew about the story, like the Trois Sisters or the Cruel Sister or the Miller and the King's Daughter, or however you want to call it? Did you have that story first, or did you go kind of, I want to write a historical epic first, and then the harp kind of came afterwards?
Oh god, no. The Trois Sisters came first because I listened to Lorena McKennitt's version called The Bonnie Swans, yet another name for the two sisters. And yeah, I love the song. Lorena McKennitt, big fan here. But yeah, Bonnie Swans is amazing. But I listened to the song. I love the imagery of this young girl being made into a harp, which the ballad, it originally comes from James Child compiled had a lot of ballads in the Victorian times, which were dating back several hundred years, and there's he has about 15 different versions. But Lorena's version, the one she chose to do, was one of the ones with 3 daughters rather than 2 daughters. I was like, 3 daughters, but what about the second one? And who even is this person? And so that was the kernel of my main character, Keen, actually started from listening to the ballad. So it was kind of like a two-pronged thing. Like, on one hand, I really, really wanted to write the scene where one of the girls is basically made into a bone harp. And well, this sounds very romantic, when you just say, she was made into a harp. But then I started thinking about the process of how would you turn a corpse effectively into a musical instrument. It sounds pretty grotesque, and because I'm clearly perverse, I was like, I want to write this. I want to have a go at writing this.
Yes, and as you'll see later on our little video here, we're going to go through some of the design process of the harp, but yet actually turning a body and a human skeleton into a harp is not an easy thing. This has sort of done my head in for the last couple of weeks, so I've been trying to make sense of how do you actually make a harp out of a skeleton. But yeah, so you sort of took the Lorena McKennitt, I can say Lorena McKennitt. Wow! Just words have gone. Good start, it's going really well. We've got a quick question from Nope Plays saying, on the tour, will someone play the bone harp? Lucy, can you answer to how the harp is played or sings within the novel and the myth as to why this is not too much of a concern?
Because the harp isn't ever played. It sings on its own. It plays itself, which is part of the kind of ghoulish magic that imbues it. And it's a crucial part of the original tale, insofar as when the harp is returned to the king's court, usually these daughters are princesses or noble ladies, the harp sings without being plucked, and it tells the story of the murder, and therefore kind of indicts the elder sister in front of the entire court, and she usually meets a sticky end. But the kind of horror is that this harp is animate, like it
still has a soul,
spirit.
Maybe.
Exactly, it still has a soul, which is actually kind of, no, it's very dark. It's very dark. If you think about that, she hasn't ascended or she hasn't found peace. She's in this harp, but she wants to tell her story. She wants the truth to be known. So we are looking at the possibility of the song being sung. Actually, if anyone has read the book, there's very few people have at the moment, but I did get to something I really wanted to do was write my own version of Trois Sisters inside Sistersong. So I've basically made up my own kind of song. It's a rhyme. And we're thinking about the possibility of putting that to music, finding a tune for it, finding someone to sing it. I mean, my sister is actually really good at singing, so I know. And
she's in the chat, so we're just gonna nudge her a bit. I mean, yeah, we'll definitely get someone to sing it. Who that may be, we'll wait and see. But it's definitely happening. And then the harp will hopefully I have some coding skills to brush up on, involve a proximity. I don't know whether to do a proximity sensor or a remote control, because a proximity sensor at a book event could get problematic if people are walking up to it and it's just constantly singing. So might put it on a button so you can just kind of point at it and it will play when you want it to, rather than just kind of going madly in the corner just constantly singing.
You know what? The funny thing is, though, about your proximity sensor, I actually wrote that into the book, so it kind of is on a proximity. Like whenever, so even like if somebody goes near it, it starts singing.
We're going to have to put a proximity sensor in, and you're just going to have to live with it at book events. Alien just has asked, where did you acquire the body? We're not using a real body. I'm going to make this harp, and yes, to Lucy's actual sister, just, you know, sleep with one eye open just in case. If the build goes really badly wrong, we may have to look for alternatives.
Yeah, well, you know, that's what sisters are for. Really useful, good for inspiration.
It will be humanely done, I promise.
As much as you can basically take apart a person and reassemble them into a horrible creation.
Yeah, it's funny because there's so the Twa Sisters, or the Cruel Sister, or the Miller and the King's Daughter, or the Bonnie Swans, or I don't know why this has so many names, but it's one of those stories that really sort of has clearly flooded the consciousness and sort of transcended, you know, time and space, and is still continuing in versions. But it's the first recorded writing of it is 1656, which is ridiculous that this has been sort of prevalent and kept going, and there's so many different versions from that time kind of onwards. I mean, sort of, it's a murder ballad, but kind of the general thing is there's at least two sisters. There's a man of some sort who comes between the two sisters. One gets jealous of the other, kills the other, and then marries the man, and then the other's bones sing in this harp form of the murder. That's sort of the basic premise.
And amazingly, I did actually keep to the basic premise. That is what happens in Sistersong. It's just that it happens in an interesting roundabout sort of way, and
there's a story alongside that.
There's a story. I mean, it's my problem with the ballad is it has several things. Is that particularly though, you only really ever get to hear one side of the story. Usually it's the younger sister who's killed, and you think, well, she's made out to be a victim. She's, you know, what has she really kind of, you know, done wrong then? But I thought, well, the thing is, there's always two sides, and I'm sure the elder sister had some kind of provocation or a reason.
Wasn't just an evil bitch.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I don't buy into evil bitches too much. I mean, I've never really written, while I write for antagonists, I've never really had a kind of genuinely evil character. Maybe I've got one character in Starborn who is probably or there's probably two in the trilogy that come close to, you know, not morally grey. But otherwise, all my kind of principal characters have always been, you know, they're quite difficult, complex people who have different motivations.
In fact, on screen at the moment we've got this is a painting called The Cruel Sister by John Fayard, which is from the, I want to say 1700s, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's an old painting. And you can almost see from this painting the kind of the roles that the two sisters have been cast in, because one's in this kind of silk and white and the other one's kind of set back and, you know, wrapped in this dark cloak. You've immediately got this, like, this is the virtuous younger sister, this is the cruel sister who drowns her.
Yeah, it's stereotypes, isn't it? That's what it really struck me when I heard it. Story here, I mean, it's a ballad, it's not going to really go into details, but that's what excites me as a writer, because what is left unsaid is the interesting stuff. You get all the sensation, all of the excitement in these, you know, kind of very bold images of you know, a sister murdering another sister and then have her body being turned into a harp. This is like, you know, sensation. But nothing happens in a vacuum, and this kind of extreme end of the story, there has to be some development somewhere. There has to be, and also not just it's about developing the relationship between the two sisters. It's also about putting their story in context. So I mean, I obviously, when I started writing this, I realized very quickly that the main action in the ballad will have to happen at the end of the story, at the end of the book. So like 3/4 of the way through the story, and I'm like, well, oh god, I've got to get 3/4 of the way through the story. Like, what am I going to fill the novel with?
Because so mostly you've got the ballad kind of goes. The murder is quite early on. It's sort of there's like one verse of there was a man. They were. Sorry, my headphone keeps falling out. I've switched to in-ear headphone today because I'm on my desktop, and I don't have the right ears for in-ear headphones. But yeah, the ballad is kind of, the first verse is like there's a man, they're torn. Second verse is murder, and then there's like 4 verses as a harp gets made. So actually the murder is quite early on, and you're kind of having to turn that around, I guess, for the book a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the murder is... Oh, if it's a murder, that's my... I mean, you read the book, it's all a bit shady.
The death!
Murder might be a bit of a harsh word for it, but certainly there is a death. And I just thought, there's simply no way this can happen early on in the book. This is something that... there are many preceding events and actions to get to that point. So that's where... you asked earlier about whether I wanted to write historical fantasy, and this is where this is coming from. Like, I thought I've got to have some kind of setting, and originally I was thinking of doing secondary world because that's my normal go-to, make it up. And I don't know, I just written a trilogy, and I was a bit tired of dragons and time traveling, and never ever do time travel. She
does it very well.
It's so difficult. I will never do it again. Anyway, moving on from the horror of writing time travel stories, I live in an interesting place. I live in Devon. It's seen a lot of really interesting local history around here, and there's also an area kind of up on the cliff which they've found basically Neolithic remains and remains from a Romano-British settlement. A Romano-British settlement, that's the time that I set Sistersong in. It's about 535 AD. It's like, early medieval age. It's really interesting. What was going on, that it was after the Romans had left Britain, but it was before the Anglo-Saxons, or the Kingdom of England came to be, which didn't really kind of come about until about, Alfred the Great's time, like in 800, 900. So this presented a really nice opportunity. I was like, on one hand, I've got the ballad, which is, really exciting story, and on the other hand, I've got Devon and this local history, and a really interesting epoch with a lot of stuff happening that is not very well documented. So what a great blend to kind of put a story that's quite fantastical into a period where it obviously definitely happened, but we don't know very much about it. So it gave me a little bit more license to, let's say, not make shit up, but just be a bit more creative.
Yeah, I mean, you did sort of, that time period is sort of in the middle, sort of early Middle Ages is kind of almost Dark Ages, where there's not a lot written about it. Like, the sources are very hard to find. So, in a way, you're sort of making things hard for yourself because the research is a nightmare, but in a way, you're also making things easier for yourself because no one really knows anything, so you can make a bit more up.
There's always going to be that one person. There are no chimneys in song, but there was in the first draft, and I was told that there were no chimneys. I should have done my research better.
I think we lost you on the microphone there, Lucy. Can you say that again?
Yeah, I really was just rambling about chimneys, so it wasn't very important.
I think there was just how someone's always going to have done the research, so you can't actually make it all up, unfortunately.
Not all, no. But that's the fun part. You get to read about stuff that actually happened and that you can't find. And I mean, I did my best. I feel like it should possibly have a slight historical disclaimer in there saying, I did probably move a few things around, just a little bit, but just to make narrative sense. But here, that's poetic license, right?
You want to have that kind of film disclaimer while these events may be based on actual events. They are not actual events.
Well, not that, but yes, yeah. I mean, there's but those events are very poorly documented. So, while they happened, nobody is quite sure on the location. For example, the Battle of Baden Hill, it was Arthur's, and this is part of the Arthur myth as well. Nobody is quite sure kind of who Arthur was, whether he was a kind of amalgamation of 3 or so different people. But there are references to these things that actually did happen, and particularly the period that it's set in is around the kind of the Saxon before they were Anglo, the Saxon advance into the West Country. The West Country was very tribal, very fiercely independent, even during the Roman occupation of Britain. So it was very interesting to kind of dig down into what went, the power structures that were in place in this period, maybe between 400 and 600 AD, because it's interesting because the Romans, it's not meant to be the Dark Ages anymore. It's early medieval, but it was called the Dark Ages for a reason, because everything did seem to kind of go dark from a historical perspective. There is only one primary source, major primary source, which is Gildas, the priest's account of life in England at that time. And it's mostly a rant about 5 British kings who he thought were not Christian enough.
Of course it is. Classic priest there.
Yeah, so naturally I put him in the story as a character.
I hope he rants with the best of them. Because you sort of get this weird... we're used to defining kind of historical periods by kind of who's in power. And it's often kind of like someone else coming... I think technically aren't we in the Windsors era now or something? It's kind of the Georgians and the Romans, and you've got a bit of a power vacuum here in this time period where England hasn't yet been united as England, because Alfred the Great and sort of his descendants are the ones who kind of start pulling England into a single... Well, it didn't even pull it into a single country, they pulled it into kind of the south, because let's leave that bit up there, as we still do. But yeah, it's sort of... It's kind of... It is a bit of an undefined period almost in time, isn't it? Which is kind of, exciting but also really bizarre and interesting.
Yeah, it's ripe for filling with stories about bone harps and murderous sisters, as I found. It was... I have to say, the whole thing has been just so... It was so refreshing, it was challenging. I feel like I've grown as a writer writing this book, because it was funny. I wanted to write a book ever since I heard the ballad, and that was 9 years ago. But I didn't start writing it until after the trilogy was finished. And I'm really glad that I wrote the trilogy before, because it put me in a much better position, when we're talking about the craft of writing. I feel like I've done this version of the story justice. It's as good as I can make it. I'm really proud of it. I think I haven't written anything better than this, so I shouldn't really say that, but
you sort of hope that every new thing that you create is better than the last thing that you create, because that's why you're growing as a creator, aren't you? So actually, if it's not the best thing, you'd almost be annoyed, wouldn't you? If it was kind of, I've gone backwards.
Sorry, work in progress that I wrote in lockdown, but you're just not as good.
But yeah, I think this is, you get this actually if you read Lucy's trilogy, which is the Worldmaker trilogy, and is Starborn. I've forgotten the other two names. Heartland and Firestorm. Then I was amazed. I remember being amazed just by the jump between the first and the second one, because the first one's great. The first one is quite. Not meaning this to sound derogatory in any way.
Please be honest. Please share.
The first one is quite a straightforward fantasy. A to B quest. It kind of feels, here's a fantasy story. And then it just gets so much bigger. Like the expansion from book 1 to book 2, I remember just being like, book 1 is really good. And then I read book 2 and I was like, book 2 is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. Book 2 was a horror to write. I'll never forget it.
The horrors are the best.
Yeah, well, that was the first draft of 25,000 words, which is a hell of a lot longer than it actually ended up being. It was about 17,000 words I cut out of that, and it's a good thing too. So yeah, when I wrote the first draft of Sistersong, interestingly, it was only 94,000 words.
Oh, okay, so short-ish for an epic.
Yeah, well, for any, I guess for any sort of fantasy book, it's quite short. But then after the first edit, it went to 115, which is a bit more reasonable, and now it sits at, I think, about 124.
So it's a good one to get your teeth stuck into for anyone who's...
It's almost the same as my other books. But it's a bit more... I feel like it's a bit more compact, and the action takes place very much in one place. So it has a very brooding, kind of heavy atmosphere to it, because it's not so wide-ranging. So very focused.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about the harp. I've got here the what have I got? I've got a thing in my notebook that I wrote down. So I've got it first published or first catalogued in 1806. So it existed from 1656 as The Miller and the King's Daughter, and then kind of was actually, they went, oh, this is kind of a thing we should hold and keep, from kind of 1806. And the kind of earliest published version, the description of the harp is, he made a harp of her breastbone, whose sounds would melt a heart of stone. The strings he framed of her yellow hair, whose notes made sad the listening ear. We're not going to pick at the rhyme of hair and ear, but yeah, we'll go with the old school pronunciation. It's my tongue getting it wrong. But yeah, so the harp is... So in the original kind of ballad, the harp... A miller finds the body at the side, like it gets to a mill, and the miller finds the body and turns it into a harp. Does the miller turn it into a harp, or does someone else turn it into a harp? Because
a harper turns it into a harp.
Because I got confused by this. I was like, hang on, how does the miller know how to make a harp? No, but the miller just finds her body.
Well, there's both versions of this story. I mean, like a miller in it. The miller's daughter finds Ag the body on the shore, and then a harper happens by, and we're like, it just happened by, I mean, I
guess it's like a wandering minstrel, isn't it? He was just kind of wandering through and went, ooh.
But my thing is, wandering minstrels don't usually have natter. So what was he thinking of, hacking this dead girl's body apart? I mean, thinking he could make something beautiful with it? I mean, what? That is never explained. So I don't actually have that in Sistersong, because I think that's one of the weakest parts of the story, because it makes very little sense as to, why this travelling minstrel would have these anatomical skills.
Yeah, and why his first thought upon seeing a body was, I know, I'll make a harp out of that. Which, even if you are a harper, you need to check yourself. Like, if your first thought upon seeing a dead body is not, I'll report this, or, oh, poor girl, but I could make a harp from this.
I could make a harp and then I'll be famous. Actually, the minstrel disappears from the story, presented to the king. There is no more of its maker.
So does he do the presenting, or?
Yeah, he takes it. He takes it to the court, and then puts it in Lorena's lyrics, the harp upon the stone, and then straight it began to play alone. So after that, after the story is out and the girl is allowed to sing and the truth comes out, there is no more of the harper. That his part in the tale is done.
I mean, you could sort of have, I feel like you could write a kind of spin-off at some point about, a harper who, the harper who's actually some sort of avenging angel who sees the truth of people's deaths and helps them to, get their story out.
Yeah, well, see, I could have gone down that road. I think that might have worked. Setting where you could have the, more mythical creatures and more mythical beings rather than, just that. Because with the historical side of it, I've kept the magic. It is a magical historical fantasy, but the magic is fairly down to earth. There's not too many kind of, coming from someone who wrote, sort of, dragons and
time traveling dragons,
outlandish creatures. There's no outlandish creatures. So I feel like I'm hoping the magic is a natural part of the world I've created.
I mean, it's kind of that time period when kind of everyday magic felt a lot more part of life. Sort of, the kind of druids were about still-ish, just a bit. I mean, the Romans had got rid of most of them, but a lot of people were still clinging to kind of Celtic pagan beliefs, which were much more magical in a way, and believing that there was, things people could do and more to the world. So it's kind of there within the history.
It is. Martin Wall wrote a really great. That was great.
We completely lost you, Lucy. Need you to lean slightly closer to your microphone.
Oh, okay.
There. Thanks. Okay? So Martin Wall wrote a great book called
The Magical History of Britain.
Okay.
Yeah, is it okay now? Can everyone hear me? It's a really good book, and it talked exactly about what you just said. Druids, and the Celtic magic and the tribal practices still being very much in evidence during the period. So I actually reference that they had nematons, these sacred groves deep in the heart of the forest that only druids could access, and that's where they communed with their gods. And the gods are very interesting because they actually overlap with Norse gods. But we talk about Woden and Odin, the Horned One. Even some of the the goddesses overlap with Roman gods and goddesses as well. So it's just interesting that humans have many names for the same thing. But obviously, and we know Christianity, when that spread, it was basically helped by the pagan religion that was already in place. So Christians hung a lot of their own festivals onto the festivals that were already in place.
Like, Christmas.
And Easter.
Yes, both these are pagan festivals. Mistletoe is a pagan ritual. There's a lot of how can we easily slide a religion in here? We'll just take over this. There's just some comments coming in. Alienette just saying, it's always the bards.
Yeah, bastards.
Note plays saying, checks her donor card. She consents to become a harp. Which I think should be a new tick box on your donor card, is do you consent to become a harp upon your death? And Kim has come in with Woden, as in instead of Woden.
I like it.
Which I see we're all having fun, clearly.
Yeah, I like the donor card. Really dark. Yeah, it's okay.
Lucy, I'm going to get you to do something quickly. So everyone just bear with us for a second while we try and sort out, because your sound's dropping out a bit, and this could be a setting in Discord that could fix this. So if you go into, there's a little settings divot thing next to your name. Little settings wheel, cog wheel next to
got it.
Yeah, and then there will be a voice and video settings on the right hand side somewhere.
Yep, got it.
Yeah, somewhere down there there's lots of things that say like cut off and automatically switch when voice gets too low and things. Basically make it all as smooth as possible. There will be things for like prioritize video call or prioritize for voice call if you like tick that. I'm trying to do this from memory. This is really because if I try to do it via Discord, I'll lose you on the Discord.
Yeah, hard.
Ah, hang on, I can do it through here. I'll talk you through it. We are still making things work. So yeah, if you...
How about output volume? Turn that up?
Yeah, let's turn that up a little bit.
Oh, it's really loud now.
Okay, I can turn you down, it's okay. There's an advanced voice activity button.
Yeah, voice activity.
If you turn that off,
the voice activity thing.
the advanced voice activity.
Oh, hang on a sec. That's not. We're looking at different things. This was okay before. Why is it suddenly gone weird?
Because now we're doing multiple things.
Because I can't find what you're talking about.
Chat amongst yourselves, everyone watching.
To be honest, everything's like ticked green on here.
Okay, so the one that says advanced voice activity, take that off green. There. Gonna lose my earphone.
Again. I don't actually have advanced voice activity.
Amazing. Should be in voice processing.
Oh yeah. I have.
I've no idea what you just said because we lost you entirely there. You've gone away completely. That's not just me, is it? Okay. Try now. Talk now? No? Can anyone else hear Lucy? I'm wondering if I've just lost the sound now. No, you have completely gone away. I'm getting no feed from you. What did you click? Unclick whatever you clicked. It's obviously wrong. I broke it. Lucy, I might hang up on you and call you back. Just... Okay, everyone. Oh, yeah, Kim is commenting in the comments that this is the fun stuff I never get to see on stream. This absolutely is. This is like, Kim usually manages this stuff, and now I'm having to manage it, and it's mental. Right, we'll get you back in a second, Lucy. Are you back?
Hi?
Hello!
Yeah? You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Wonderful. Okay, let's see how long that lasts for.
Cool. So, it's not really my fault, is it? Please don't say it's my fault.
It's not your fault. It's Kim and I had this when we first started streaming, that like everything would work until we went live, and then because there was just like another thing in the mix, everything fell apart. So yeah, it's fun. It's the fun of technical. Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, well, the new digital age, where we...
Yes,
Yeah.
so I mean there'll also be all sorts of fun playing with digital when the harp goes digital. There now, but we can hear Becky on Lucy's end. Oh, okay. Lucy, do you have headphones? We might need you to put in headphones.
Yeah, sure. Just a sec.
We're doing well, guys. But, you know, it's a first try. By the time we finish this, so we're going to be doing 6 live streams. So 1 every month until April when the book comes out. By the time we finish streaming in April, this will be a well-oiled machine. Just you wait. It might not be right now, but it will be. We'll get there.
You can't really test this, like, really, can you, before it?
No, I mean, I was testing earlier and testing like the music and making sure that was going to work. There's nice music going on, which you can't hear, Lucy, but there's lovely, people have said the music's neat. So there's nice music going on. But yeah, it is a process.
1 second.
Just making all the stuff work.
Great. You're coming through here now.
Wonderful. That's good. So we're all hunky-dory. Got a lovely picture on screen now, which is Bianori, which is another name for this ballad, just to give you one more. Which is by Tan Morner on DeviantArt, it's a really lovely picture. And it kind of makes the bone harp doesn't look creepy, it kind of looks nice.
It's supposed to be nice as well. It's supposed to be majestic and terrible.
Beautiful and terrible. What did we say? What did you say earlier? What was the watchword of the project now?
Put me on the spot. Something definitely terrible. Magnificently terrible?
Terrible magnificence. This is the watchword of the project. Terrible magnificence. Do you have to hand, I realise I'm putting you on the spot again, the description of the harp in the book? I realised that we did put it in the launch video the other week, so I should probably know it, but I don't off the top of my head. She can find it. Because I'm just thinking, like, your description is quite specific in terms of what body parts are used.
I will try. The danger, of course, is if I actually look at it from my text document, I will probably just spoiler the whole thing.
Don't tell us everything.
So, like, no names.
No names, just, there is a description of that I think we've put in the video that's about which bones are involved.
There is indeed.
Just as we start to talk about some harps and how this whole turning a book description and turning a ballad into an actual harp is going, because you've written the book, that's done, and you've finished the edits last week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, some time ago. It's actually page proofs are coming next. The copy edit is done. I don't know if the current physical proof is the copy edited version. It might not be, in which case I apologise.
Do you want to do a quick explanation for anyone viewing who might not know what copy edits, proofs and page proofs are?
Yeah, sure. So when I write the book, it kind of goes to my editor. The big first edit is we just call the edit. Very complicated there. Where we basically it's a structural edit where I kind of like can take the book apart and put it back together again. The one following that, if that's okay, is the copy edit, which mine was thankfully very light this year, this time round even. And it's basically trying to catch inconsistencies, so characters knowing things when they ought not to know things, or direct, like if I've contradicted myself as the author.
Like, I believe this might have happened in one of your copy edits in Starborn, because you changed the name of the lead character in copy edits. There might have been one or two missed character names that had to be shifted. Things like that.
Things like that, yeah. Sometimes they're very embarrassing. Love my copy edits.
Or you've left. Sometimes you leave things in. I know that I've done this before, where you leave something in, and then you forget to delete it, and it was never meant to be there. It was just like a note to yourself, but you left it in the document.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually a bit of a perfectionist, so that doesn't happen to me. But I know it happens to other people. But I mean, I've done stupid things, and. Yeah, but honestly, copy editors are like gods, because the amount that they can notice is, it just flies under my radar. I can't see it at all. And, I have a really good example of this. So one of my copy edits, which possibly is not in the proof, so it'll just have to be there. So Keen, my central character, the first chapter, he says that he can't recognise a yew tree. He doesn't know what this particular type of tree is. And yet, 3 pages later, he buries a bracelet under a yew tree. And this didn't even occur to me, you know, but I had to change that because clearly he does know what a yew tree is.
Excellent.
So stupid stuff like that, which I would never have even picked up on, but copy editors are like gods, and you know, they can see through everything. So once that's done, you're on page proofs, and page proofs are the really exciting bit because it's when the book has been typeset, so it actually looks like a real book, and it's, you know, you can get it as a PDF, or you can have a big stack of dead forest, which that makes me feel really bad.
It's an important part of the book process, dead forest.
Yeah, it's just I really like having the physical pages because I can catch typos more easily.
It makes a difference. You don't read in the same way digitally. You don't.
It's better.
There are, yeah, you said that the proof copies that are going out to kind of advanced readers right now are not necessarily per page proofs. They might just be proof copies for advanced reading. But if you look around at Lucy's internet web presence, you will see some beautiful pictures of proofs in the wild, which have a stunning cover. They're so pretty.
Yeah, they've done a lovely fiery autumn version of the cover art, especially for the proofs, which I just got really excited about because I love it when proofs look different from.
Yeah, I sort of wish like our YouTube, you know, our overlay that we've got here, which is the actual book cover, was the kind of fiery proof cover. I might have to recolor it for some of our future streams.
Oh yeah, definitely, just to get like the autumn vibe. Especially, yeah, well, when we're not like streaming in spring, when we're streaming like now in December and January, I think the fiery colours will look appropriate.
Yeah, so right now on the screen there's some nice little bone harps happening, or fantasy style harps, because this is sort of some of the research that I did and Lucy did, was kind of how on earth does a bone harp exist? So you look at what have other people done. There is an actual bone harp coming up called Cruel Sister by Loving the Dark on DeviantArt, which I'll pull up to people because that's the only one I think I've ever seen that is an actual bone. I mean, it's made out of clay, as we'll be making ours, but it is a harp made of bones and hair, and I've not seen anyone else actually do it, and it sort of blows my mind that more people haven't done this because I think it's great.
Yeah, I found the bits in the book. Tells you what I used.
Yes, can you give us your description of the bones that are used in your harp, so what we have to design with in mind?
So we've got taking the bones from her chest, so that's very open, but we're thinking maybe a couple of ribs and breastbone. Well, particularly the breastbone.
The breastbone is mentioned in the description, isn't it? So you'll see in a minute we'll start getting on to some of my early designs and sort of how things have developed from there. Because the early designs didn't really have the breastbone in, and when sort of Lucy sent me the sections from it, and I was like, the breastbone is really quite prominent here. I really feel if we haven't got the breastbone in, it's not quite gonna match, really.
So that's in the ballad as well. Like he makes a harp of her breastbone.
Yeah, which I mean, also that's like the whole description in the ballad as well, isn't it? Is he makes a harp from her breastbone, which your breastbone's like a piece of bone about this size. Like, it's not, you can't make a harp from it. Like, you need some other bones. This is a picture, this is from, why can't I see this in my reference? This is a fibre optic string harp by the London Harp Studio, which is, I want this harp to have something a bit magical, so I do kind of want to put a bit of light in it. But the strands, the strings need to feel and look like hair, because this is in the book, isn't it, that the strings are made of hair, her golden hair.
Her yeah, that's absolutely it. The strings are woven from her golden hair, which was matted with blood, but was washed nicely before it was woven into strings.
It'd be way more fun if we could leave it matted with blood.
I think that would be like really, really gross.
Yeah, because when we first started talking about this and talking about like the feel of the harp and how the harp needs to, what people need to experience looking at the harp. Also, hi to Brittany in chat. Glad you made it. Yeah, we wanted it to have, you wanted it to be almost nice from a distance.
Yeah, so it's meant to be. So there's a section in the book where one of the sister comes into the kind of the main hall and sees the harp, and the harp is beautiful and terrible as winter. It is beautiful like a sword is beautiful. It's beautiful like a rose. It's beautiful like but with thorns. It's beautiful like a storm is beautiful. So it is beautiful, but it's beautiful in a dangerous, deathly sort of way.
Yeah, and it needs to have that. This is a horrifying thing. Like, however beautiful and however lovely, and I think, you know, one of your descriptions of the harp, so we don't spoil that, you know, I'm not going to get you to find it, and we won't quote it word for word, but sort of when someone first experiences it, they're not immediately like, oh, it's a body, it's a bone, it's a skeleton. They see a harp. So you have to have that slight disconnect where it does look like a harp from a distance, and it's not immediately a figure, but it does have enough of a human element that if you know, it makes you do a double take, and
that's
you're sort
exactly
of going, this is a thing. And that's quite when you're making something out of a skeleton, that is quite a hard balance to tread.
Yeah, and that's reflected in your drawings, because I think you yourself were saying kind of, oh, I don't know how human to make it. Like, is it, you know? And sometimes they came up as being too human, and then the one that, you know, you've gone with is the slightly, as you just described. It's there's something that makes you pause, but it isn't immediately a human corpse or a human skeleton.
Yeah, so we'll get on to seeing some of those in a minute. But yeah, this is the Queen Mary harp, which is a 15th century harp. And this is kind of the classic harp as we know it today. And it's sort of, you know, harps have been around since about 3000 BC.
Yeah.
Which is kind of mind-blowing, but this harp, this kind of image of the harp as we know it, is very much a modern harp. And so sort of it's that interesting thing. I was watching a program the other day, and I was watching a period drama, and I was thinking about this, how you want to design something that is true to the time period, but at the same time you want to design it in a way that modern audiences will recognise it. If we made it a true historic harp, people might not look at it and think harp. And you do want people to look at it and immediately think harp. So it's kind of marrying that of like, you know, ultimately it's a skeleton harp, we can do what the hell we want. But it's trying to take that sort of, you know, this look, which is what we think of as a modern harp, and see it through a kind of more historic lens. Which is a challenge. This has been fun for me. This is a complete, you know, a complete
this
challenge.
This is why you're the person for the job.
Because I think about these things.
Yeah, no, exactly. Probably more than I do, actually. I just like, I want to ride a harp that's made of bones.
Well, yeah, this has sort of been it's not a bad thing about working with Lucy. This is just a funny thing about working with Lucy. In that I think you're still just excited that there's going to be a bone harp in existence. So every design I send Lucy, she goes, it's great. And I'm like, no, but I've just sent you 3 designs. Which one do you like? They're all great. Just very excited about there being an actual bone harp from the novel in existence.
I do like them all, though. I think it's because it's such a versatile idea. Like, you could, as you've demonstrated, you can go in many different directions with the design. So I think they all look really cool. Some of them look more animalistic, and some of them look more like, you know, not creepy enough. But it just depends kind of where you want to have a strike, but like you were saying, you want to strike a balance between something that is not going to be, immediately, like it's a, because I remember you did that. I'm glad that we're really going to show people like this later because it is a really cool design. But the one with the ribs, I remember that one was like, well, yeah, that looks like that is definitely a skeleton. But then you also want to have one that it makes you kind of feel a bit like, ugh, there's something really weird about that.
Basically, you just want 5 bone harps.
Yeah, I want all the harps.
All of the harps.
All of the harps.
This on screen now is an Egyptian shoulder harp, which is actually from 1000 BC. So this sort of gives you an idea of more of a historical harp design, which it is still recognisable as a harp, but it's and how structured the harp has been for sort of 3,000 years, which is kind of phenomenal. There is also a nice thing about the harp being made out of skeleton in that the size is very defined.
Yeah, it can't be one of those big Celtic harps, let's just say that.
No, it can't be enormous. So yeah, it's got to be a certain scale harp, just because the human spine is only so long. Or the human bones. I mean, I've chosen very much to use the spine as the structure, just because that makes life a lot easier. Just
it's also cool.
Yeah, we're losing our first person from the chat. Just Alien Extras, thanks for stopping by. Just for anyone who has to dash, this is going to be on YouTube after we finish the stream. So the whole process will be available to watch ongoing. It's lovely to have you here while we're actually live, but if you have to run, absolutely do, and feel free to stop by later and watch and tell your friends, because I'd like to keep spreading this.
Yeah, it's fun talking about bone harps.
It is fun. Yeah, that's where we are now. It's fun talking about bone harps. I mean, we're going to be talking about bone harps for six 2-hour streams. Like, for 12 hours we're going to talk about bone harps.
Yeah, you'll all think that we can't say anything about bone harps, but you'd be wrong.
I mean, once we get into the process of making it, there's going to be a lot more kind of making chat, and we'll talk about the song when we're recording the song and things. There's going to be a lot of construction chat and the kind of traditional craft chat that I've done on streams with Kim. But yeah, right now this is your introduction to Sistersong and bone harps. This harp here is actually a fairly recent harp. This harp is from 1930. It doesn't look like it, but it's an African harp. So yeah, it's sort of, and this, I really like the part of the design on this. So one thing that I haven't included on any of my harps, but it's something that I will build in, I just find it really hard to draw, is something that was in the original ballad, or was in like some of the original ballads, and has made it into Lucy's book, and it's the thing I remember from the ballad and from like stories that I've read of it, is that the finger bones are made into pins. So the strings are on the finger bones to twist and tune it, and I really like the kind of sticky out pins on this harp design. That kind of gave me an idea for how to do the pins. But try drawing finger bones stuck into a spine while you're drawing. I challenge anyone to do that and make it look good and like fingers. So I've just kind of left that element out of all the drawings, but I will put it in when we actually make the harp. I just can't get my head around the perspective of that one. Note Plays is asking, in your research, Becky, were there bone harps made of animal bones? Not really. People don't make bone harps. Like,
No way. Don't say they don't make bone harps.
No, but like bone flutes exist. Like, things that you could carve, like hollow out bones, and have been made out of animal bones. Like historically, you get bone flutes and things. But maybe bones, like the practicalness of it. Like this on screen now is the bone harp Cruel Sister, made by Loving the Dark on DeviantArt, which is the only artistic creation of a bone harp that's not a drawing, like the only structural one I've ever seen. And you saved this picture as well, and so this is one of the first pictures we started talking about when we were talking about the bone harp. But I guess there is there's quite a lot of structure involved to a harp, and it has to take, in order to take proper strings, we get a bit of leeway in this, because we're going to make it electronic. There's a lot of tension required in that structure, so actually the shape of the harp has to be really sturdy. And I guess you might get something like a lyre made out of a bone, maybe? Like you could make it out of a thigh bone or something, like more of a lap harp. So there might be lap harps, but I kind of ignored lap harps because that really wasn't the harp look we were going for. But I think it's just that kind of the tension that's required across those strings, and because the shape of the harp, because you want that arch, just trying to get bones into that shape and to hold that tension. The level of craftsmanship was just easier to make out of wood.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can see that as well. Also, bones, yeah. I don't know, I feel like crafting aside, which, as you said, it's already quite problematic, there's also a morally grey kind of issue about making stuff out of bones, and I suppose even if it's animal bones, I think making something, anything from, out of the structure of something that used to be alive gives it another kind of aspect that you wouldn't have with, something made out of wood.
Yeah, and I can see this especially with instruments where they do almost talk. So if you're kind of taking something that was alive and giving it a different voice, there is something really a bit weird about it. But then, violin strings used to be made from cat guts.
Yeah, oh god, don't say that.
But they did! This is, violins, what were bagpipes used to be like a cow stomach or something. Like, there's a lot of, historically, actually, yeah. Don't know. Just not many people going in for bones. Okay, we're getting into harp designs now. So on the screen,
this show off your designs.
I get to show off some designs. This is the very first harp design. Ignore the proportions. This is right back when, and I hadn't done a lot of. I've now looked at so many skeletons. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I like study. I almost bought a teaching skeleton today, but they're really expensive. But yeah, this is the first design, and the pelvis bone is way too big compared to the spine and everything else, and the shoulder blade is way too small. But this was the sort of first design, which of course Lucy loved and was like, "Yep, we're done, we're good."
Yeah, sorry about that.
And then I, being a perfectionist, kept going and tweaking things. Kim is asking, anyone seen that Hannibal episode where a guy makes violin bows from humans? Yes. Also the one where the guy flips their shoulder blades back to turn them into angels, and the one where they grow mushrooms out of them. So many great episodes in Hannibal. Might have to watch Hannibal again while making the harp. That seems appropriate.
It really does.
Yeah, so what were your thoughts on this first one?
Since I can't actually see the first one, since my stream is completely out of sync with
it was the one with the broken ribs, like the very first.
Oh.
Very first broken ribs, no rib cage, no breastbone.
Yeah, well, I probably really liked it. Just maybe it wasn't Sistersong-y enough. I think. Yeah, I mean it's. Yeah, I think what I liked about the broken ribs is just because it's very. Yeah, it was a bit atmospheric, wasn't it? It's kind of like very. There's a sort of cold violence about the cracked ribs because you wonder what on earth caused them. So that. Yeah, the broken ribs aspect, I think I probably still like and always like, but actually it's not that appropriate for the bone harp in the sense that this is an item that has been crafted not out of love exactly, but by a character who did care for the girl very, very much when she was alive.
And the process of
it would have been inappropriate.
The process of the construction of it is very reverent almost.
It is. It is. It's quite witchy. The whole thing happens on Samhain night, so like the 31st of October. It's basically the original Celtic festival, where traditionally the veil between worlds is very thin, and so spirits can cross over, and it's like, you know, the living and the dead are as one. So it, you know, there was a lot of kind of, there's a sacredness to the crafting of the harp. It wasn't, you know, even though the process of it, there is an inherent violence in the process, because I don't see how you can't be a bit violent when you're taking apart somebody's body, especially when it's not a skeleton to start with. It's got flesh on it.
Could be meditative. I don't know. Never tried.
You know. Well, yeah. I mean, but like, there's organs in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of. It's not a pretty thing, is it? Like taking a body apart. I know. I love how we're discussing this like we know. Yeah, it's not pretty.
No, well, I have a vivid imagination. You know, I was imagining what actually would happen if you started soaring, because you wouldn't get to the bones first. You'd get to all the gooey stuff.
The viscera.
Which is much worse. And I thought, well, there's no way to avoid it being actually a horror scene, effectively. But I didn't want it to be so horrific that it lost. That it lost the reader, really, that it lost the sacred aspect, that it was to do with, you know, it's intertwined with Samhain and the idea of the living or the dead being able to speak to the living, and this kind of like cross exchange. So I think the original designs you came up with, I think they hadn't quite reached that point yet. So I think I hadn't got it clear in my mind what I wanted it to look like. And it's actually only just talking it through with you now that, you know, it's beginning to crystallise that this is what I wanted from it. And it's quite hard to capture, you know?
Yeah, this is something that's also, you know, probably become very obvious in this. And this is something I actually experienced once with Lucy's sister, where I asked her to write a script and she wrote something, and I was like, and how would we film that? In that writing something down on paper and then making it in real life are two very different things. And you can write all sorts of things on paper and not really have to deal with the consequences of how that exists, almost. And actually then trying to bring that into the real world can become a bit like, wow, okay, we actually need to knuckle down some details. The design that's on the screen now, so after reading Lucy's description of the scene, I was like, look, we have to get the breastbone in. The breastbone has to come back in to the harp design. That's crucial. And I drew this design, and I think it looks like a face hugger from Aliens.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah, I'm actually scrolling up through our Twitter content to try and find it, but I remember it, and I was like, oh, I found it!
The face hugger. Yeah, so this is the face hugger harp, and I drew it, and I was like, and I think just because it's upside down, because like the ribs are on the bottom and the like tailbone is on the top, it just doesn't feel human. It feels really weird, and it was quite kind of incredible to me how much of a difference like that orientation could make, because this just looks like an alien.
It is amazing. The first thing I thought was, I'm sorry, it is alien. It really, there was nothing cute. You know, we were saying about like, oh, we want it to be a bit human, but like obviously human, but this is like the other extreme of that.
Yeah, I went too far. Yeah, Brittany's saying, I just watched Alien again yesterday and I have to concur. And Note Plays says, kind of like a scorpion. Yes, it does remind me of a scorpion as well. So yeah, this one was weird. I was just, you know, you're trying to get stuff in, and this is, you know, perfect example of how you can write something and putting it into practice doesn't work, because all of these designs, and they're all quite different, but they all fit with the description in your book.
They do. That's probably because the description in my book is very vague.
But this is also kind of how, you know, how that kind of translation issue works. Like, these are all correct, but some of them just look so wrong.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I could have been very specific, but it wasn't really appropriate to be so specific. You kind of lose the slight dreamy quality, because I mean, afterwards the main character actually, you know, reminisces about the experience and thinks, God, was it a vision? Like, did it really happen? Did we, you know, drag back her spirit and nail it to the harp that night? Like, did we do these things? Because actually it feels so other. It feels like you know, like a hallucination. And so because of that, I couldn't really address any of these. The sort of questions that, you know, Becky was encountering trying to design the bloody thing. I couldn't really ever, you know, put them into the book, because it would have made it like some kind of crime procedural where they're like, you know, dissecting this corpse.
And this bone sat here while these strings went through this angle. It's not something you need to describe, and you do want people to kind of fill in the blanks. Like, that's part of what the joy of reading is, you know, creating these things in your head. Like, you know, we just also decided to create this one in real life.
Yeah, like we do, bringing monstrous creations into the world.
Yeah, Natalie's saying you could make a lot of stuff that isn't human out of human bones. You can. Historically, things have been made out of bones. I'm not saying start a trend. I'm not trying to start something here. This is not some sort of new recycling movement. I'm going to make it out of clay. Okay, we'll talk about that more next time. And Matt says this one on the screen now is the gnarliest yet. Yeah, this was a misstep. Okay, I've always helped with this, and yeah, you know, some of the people in the chat are on my Patreon and know I'm all about sharing the mistakes as well as the successes, and this one was a mistake. And it may have taken us, you know, longer than actually it should have done to realise that it was a mistake. What we're getting now is this is a time lapse of me drawing the next one, which is another ribcage one, but a less alien ribcage one and a more human ribcage one. So this, really, when I was drawing this, I thought this was going to be the final design. And I think this is something that creatives do, artists, makers, authors. You make something, or you put something together, and then you sit with it for a bit, and then you go, don't like it.
Yeah, waiting for me to tune in there. Yeah, it's true. But it's the kind of the writer thing where you write something and you're like, damn, I'm good. And then you close your laptop and you come back in the morning and you're like,
what was I thinking?
Yeah, so it is definitely.
So yeah, this design, which will evolve as it goes along, really, I thought as I was drawing it, I was like, this is the final harp. This is going to be the design. And as you'll see later on, it's not. Because I sat with it overnight. I drew this the other evening, and in the morning I was like, not the right harp. It's wrong. And it's a beautiful harp. It's just not the right harp.
Yeah, but that was when you were asking. Yeah, these sent me today, right?
Yeah,
they're lovely. They are both lovely, but I do.
Yeah, so this was the first one I sent you with the full ribcage. The second one I've taken a bit further and I've done a 3D model of, and that's the one. We're there now. But yeah, this. Also, I'm getting really good at drawing pelvises, which is never something I thought I'd have as like a string to my bow. Pelvis bones.
Life skill.
That's a life skill.
Well, who knows when you might actually have to take a person apart. You'll know how to do it.
Hopefully never. I'd really like to spend my whole life never taking a person apart, if that's a life goal I can aim for.
I don't know. You got pelvis skills now, so.
Yeah, so.
Can you afford to waste that?
Oh, yes, I can. So yeah, it's I'm going to make the harp out of clay, just because clay is my favourite medium. You can also see, this is funny in this time lapse, and I've talked about this a bit on my Patreon. I did a drawing guide, and I talked about the amount of mistakes people make and like that people look at finished drawings and think they kind of just happen and they come from your head onto the page. You can see in this how much I use my eraser, like how much I spend time rubbing out and redrawing things and doodling stuff again. Like, you know, Lucy's already talked a bit about like edits and copy edits and line edits, and like there's so many. How many edit passes would you say you've done on, or how many passes would you say you've done on Sistersong?
Okay. First draft, then I redid it, then my editor read it, so then I had to do it again, 3, and then the copy edit was the 4th one, and the page proofs will be the 5th pass.
So 5 passes on one book.
Yeah. Throw in a bit of, you know, I have to through all the changes before it goes out again. So I think if you actually add up all the times you've read the book from like cover to cover, it's probably about 7 or 8 by the time it gets published.
So yeah, these things just don't arrive. They do take a lot of going back and forth and making mistakes and fixing things. And yeah, when you're drawing, you don't have a line editor and a copy editor sitting there going, well, that doesn't make sense. Got to make it in your head. Yeah, Brittany's saying, yeah, I hate most of the things I do for a long time after I've done them. I think, you know, sometimes if you get good at things, you understand when something works. And I don't know if you get this when you're writing, when something just clicks and you can feel it and you go, yes, I'm on to something now. This is something. And you kind of, I guess you develop that skill, don't you? Also, you can see me here counting vertebrae, because I'm now trying to get the number of vertebrae in a spine right.
Google.
33.
Oh yeah, well, I'd be ashamed if you didn't know that specific number.
Yeah, 33, 12 ribs. I've done all my stuff. But yeah, you do. I think you develop over time that sense of when something's right and something's working. And it doesn't always mean you love it. Like, you don't always, as you're having that feeling, you don't always think this is brilliant, this is amazing, and usually actually the things you think are brilliant and amazing turn out not to be. You can just feel it's right. It just kind of settles in a space suddenly.
It does. And that's that. Sometimes you get that with you know, something as small as like lines, sentences, that, you know, you write something in it, you think, wow, that's really good, and then your editor comes and deletes it. And you think, wow, I've just taken ages trying to get that image right, and now it's gone. But you know, that's fine. There were always more where that came from. But yeah, it is an interesting process. This idea of, I suppose, you know, such a truism, practice makes perfect. But it's kind of where that you go with this. It's like just, you know, draft after draft after draft, and suddenly. Yeah, and this is the thing, I don't know if it's the same with you, but whenever I'm stuck on something or something isn't quite right, the answer to that very rarely comes when I'm actually writing.
Yeah.
It usually comes when I'm in the shower, or very, very often on the toilet.
I do believe for writers it is often in the shower. For me, it's when I'm trying to fall asleep. That is always when I will solve things.
Yeah, driving. I've had a really
driving
good
when you literally can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I have. It's really bad actually. There was one time where I was thinking about the plot of like book 3 of the trilogy, and everything was beginning to like fall into place, and I was like, oh god, you know. Remember, I'm actually behind the wheel, trying not to, you know, like drive like a sensible person. But why is this? I think it's because your brain, you know, you compartmentalize things. So, you know, the driving thing is, if you've been driving for many years, it becomes, you know, it's not autopilot, but it is something that, you know, you can do automatically. And so it's not a creative activity. So the creative part of your brain is left free to kind of, you know, and I always have music on in the background, and, you know, if I get the right track, then, you know, it sets my brain off on a kind of like, you know, I'm working through a creative problem, even if I don't realise it's a problem. And so I get these ideas while I'm driving, and I put them down. I have to just keep thinking about them.
I think it's that thing where your brain actually solves problems without you, and it kind of needs you to butt out and leave it alone. And like when you're trying to do something, you're just kind of getting in the way of your own brain. And actually, if you can, you know, focus your brain on something else, then it goes off and solves the problem on its own, and then comes back to you with the answer, and you're like, ah!
Yeah, we agonise over these things far too much.
Yeah. Natalie in chat is saying, I've been writing my book for like 6 years and I think I've read the earliest chapters hundreds of times. I mean, I think I said this on my very first stream with Kim. I used to work in film, and my feature film I have seen in excess of 100 times, and I got so good at, because I couldn't stand to watch any more screenings of it when we were doing public screenings, I could leave and I could walk back in 1 second before the credits played. I had timed it so perfectly because I knew the film so well, and I still can't watch it. I haven't watched it again since it came out, and that was a long time ago now. Matt asking, do you think the macabreness of the project will still hit you as hard later down the line when you're into the detail of the work? I think, I mean, there are stages to something like this, and the kind of sculpts for me are like really, sculpting is interesting because there are so many stages where it doesn't look good and where it doesn't look like what it's meant to look like. And so I hope that I'll sort of, you know, after the final design, I'll be like, yeah, I've got it right, the macabreness is right. Then I'll build it, not really think about it for a while, and then I'll finish it, and then suddenly be like, wow, I got the mood right. I want to kind of feel that hit again when it's complete, because I think then I've done my job right. And I think if there's not that kind of... Because I still get excited and surprised by the fact that I make things... that I've made things. I kind of look at them and I go, I made that. I didn't expect it to turn out that well. Like, it's still exciting to me. And I think, Lucy, I know authors get very excited when their books are in shops. It's still a very exciting moment. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many times it happens. You still go, that's my book.
I wrote this.
It's out in the world.
Packaged neatly.
I mean, let's be honest, booksellers are all bored of us going up and going, my friend wrote this. But yeah, there's an excitement to seeing the finished product, and if the finished product makes me kind of excited and surprised and a bit kind of awed. I think awe is maybe the feeling I'm going for with this. I think more than like horror, I think I want people to look at it and feel awe, and that kind of proper ancient, awe-inspiring, where it's, you know, I don't remember the etymology of awe, but there's something godly about it almost that feels kind of
yeah, awful.
Yeah.
Full of awe.
Yeah. Awe is, yeah, I want people to look at it and feel awe, and if I look at it and feel awe, then I've done my job, because I'll also have known the horrors of it. So it's usually when I take that final picture, when I finished a piece of work and I take the kind of almost product picture, I guess, or the hero picture, and the photo, getting the harp, getting the photo right, and then looking at the photo and going, ooh. And I think if I can look at the photo and go, oh, then I'll have got the harp right. If I look at the photo and I'm a bit like, then I probably haven't done a good enough job on it.
Well, I have a question for you.
Oh,
I know.
Exciting.
Is this? Please say no, because I'll feel bad. Is this the most complex project you've ever undertaken?
No, and we actually should talk about a bit how we've scaled this harp back quite substantially, because at one point we were talking about a harp that someone could play, which then I've got to learn how a harp works, and have strings that actually are tuned, or like if they were electronic they needed to all be touch sensitive and things. That was the original idea, and scaling back from that has been brilliant. No, I think probably the most ambitious thing I made was last summer, which was Ragnarok Retold, and was a slate carved book written in runes, which had an augmented reality app which translated the runes, and when you turned the last page, lit up a sculpture of Yggdrasil, which was wrapped with a Nidhogg that did breathe smoke. That was ambitious.
Wow. Okay, is there like pictures? Like, can people go to internet websites and see pictures of this creation?
This does exist on Instagram. There are pictures of this on Instagram. Yeah, I should take some more of it. I'm going to turn it into a lamp actually, because it's really huge and annoying and it's going to take up a lot of space in my house. So I'm going to turn it into a lamp. But that was, that was possibly the most ambitious thing. I mean, I made a feature film once. That was quite big. But yeah, this is it's maybe the biggest thing I've taken on as almost as a commission, as not, or as a collaboration, as not something that's kind of come out completely of my own head. So this is, it's always slightly different working from other people's things than working from your own stuff. It's like getting commissioned to write a book and you're given the plot, and then you're given the synopsis and you've got to go and do it. It is different to writing something that comes from your own brain.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So yeah,
I've never actually done that, so I think that's quite scary. The whole idea of writing to order really scares me. I don't know. I feel like I write because I love it, and I love telling stories, and I love finding new ways of telling old stories. And I find that would be very strange if someone said, "Yeah, I've got an idea. Here's the plot line. I just need you to write it." And you'd be like, "Well, I'm not like my heart isn't." It's such an arty thing to say, but I don't know. I have to be like,
you have to be invested in it.
My heart has to be in it. Yeah, it's not in it if it's someone else's, unless I can really get behind it. But then I'd always feel like there's some part of it that I can never lay claim to, even if I wrote it, because it didn't come from me.
I think what's nice about this is, although it's coming off your description and from Sistersong, I wanted to do a bone harp before this. So it's like, I think if we'd been talking about it and I hadn't had any idea to do a bone harp, I don't think I'd be able to do it in the same way. But sort of being able to go, oh no, I had this idea, oh now there's a really good reason for doing it, has actually been very useful. But do you think of writing as kind of a compulsion? Is it you've got a story in you and you've got to get it out, or is it,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, when I'm not writing, I feel weirdly depressed, and sometimes it's like you finish a project and you just need a break, and you're like, I love not writing anything. It's this is great, but the longer that goes on without you actually writing anything, the longer you feel like you're away from a very important part of yourself, which is, I can't really describe it as any other feeling as just not. It's a bit of a depression. It's like a bit of a, I need to be doing something, but I need to be me. I need to be doing me. Yeah. And I'm not doing me. I'm pausing me. Me is on pause. And it's great to have me on pause occasionally. But,
it's essential,
I really like
in fact.
having a project. It is essential. Yes, it's fine. There's I have loads of other hobbies, loads of other things to do with my time. But this is the core of who I am. So if I wasn't doing that, it would be awful, because I just love making stuff up. I love writing it down, and I love it's not just the making up stuff part, it's the crafting part. So in a way that you craft and you're trying to bring your artistic vision into reality, I'm doing something very similar. I'm getting a whole jumble of feelings, images, thoughts, and I'm trying to articulate them in such a way that other people can understand.
You're trying to describe a world, aren't you? There's this whole kind of world happening inside your head that you've got to find a way to make sense of with words.
And words are incredible. Words are versatile. They're also can be very key and difficult with, because people bring their own preconceptions to certain phrases, certain words, and so the English language is really a really versatile language, though, and you can do a lot of. I have a lot of license with playing around with turns of phrase and with ideas and everything that language encapsulates. But it's just this, that there is the I suppose it's it's a discipline, but it's also a pleasure. This idea of I need to find a way that a large number of people who come from different experiences to me will be able to understand the vision that I have had, and maybe be able to share in it and enjoy it in the same way, or in the way that they can. And the only way to do that is to put it into words, and that's what writing a book is. And there is a joy in that. It's really, really fucking difficult. Not gonna lie, it's really, really hard. And it takes a lot of blood, sweat and tears, but there's a joy in that. There's a joy in looking at the finished book and going, I've done my best to share this and hopefully make it shareable with a large group of people, and I guess that's what writing is, really, me trying to make my inner world part of the outer world.
I had a question, but it's gone.
I'm sorry, I rambled.
No, ramble away. We'll stop harping on soon. All right, your sister's in the chat making harp comments, so I had to. Note Plays says you two are basically gods, creating and crafting worlds. There is a bit of a godlike power.
I like this image.
I always described myself as a control freak who couldn't let go, and this is why I had to make things, and I had to make things, for me, and I couldn't make things for other, I still edit as my job. I don't make things, well, I make videos, but like my making had to be something that was kind of came from me. Like I had to be in control of every element. So I think I'm a control freak who just found a way to make it work for her.
Sure, that works.
Yeah. I've remembered. Do you ever find do you feel the need at all to kind of say something with your stories or to make a statement, or there's a lot of question, especially at the moment, and we're not going to go into politics or other things that are happening in 2020 because it's all very depressing, and we're talking about Celtic harps, so everything else can go away, but there's a lot of talk this year around the importance of art and is art necessary, and do you ever feel that pressure where you think you've got to say something with your book, or do you think the story justify that's enough of it saying something? Is it telling that story?
No, I would never say that art needs a gender. Mm-hmm. Art is art. Art is part of the human condition. It's something that can communicate without words. Ironically, it's kind of like about encapsulating feelings and conceptions and sharing them with people and trying to, and I suppose building empathy with others. So I feel like, I would never say it needs, it's not a polemic or it has to have some hidden message or agenda in there. But I have, especially with Sistersong, there were a few things I did really want to address with the book, and it wasn't something that I, set out to do with, like, as we've spoken about, the reason I wrote the book is the ballad and because of the setting, and it sounded like a really fun project, a really fun story to tell. But in the writing of it, I mean, you have to ask yourself, why do you write something at a certain point in your life? And I felt like Sistersong is the book that is a natural, while it's very, very different to Worldmaker and the stuff I wrote before, it is a natural successor because my experience with the trilogy was, up and down. It was really, really wonderful, but there were also parts of the experience that were not so good. And I wanted to, I think with Sistersong, I wanted to kind of address those parts that I felt, I struggled with. And some of that was being a female writer and obviously, I don't know how many people here know that I also run co-host a podcast, which is called Breaking the Glass Slipper, and that's a intersexual feminist podcast about women in science fiction, fantasy, and horror, any kind of speculative field.
It's very good and should be listened to.
Very cool. And thank you. And so part of that was creating the podcast. It was. And that came about from looking at the market and looking at the audiences and looking at readership and looking at publishing and publicizing, and we kind of felt that there are still so many voices that are not being heard, and it's not just women, it's across the spectrum, and I think so while I won't say that Sistersong is like just a it's not an agendaed book, there were things that I wanted to. I had them in the back of my mind while I was writing the book. I just was thinking, these are the questions that and they're not just questions, they were concerns that I met with while I was, in the process of publishing the trilogy and promoting the trilogy. So I felt like it was a natural place to go into a story where, the original ballad is very stereotyped. You do have the innocent, chaste, virginal young sister and the evil, manipulated, temptress who tries to steal the man. And these are very damaging stereotypes of women that women have had to put up with for years and reappear in stories in these guises so often.
And the fact that even sort of the younger sister, even though she is, portrayed as this virginal, and she gets more screen time essentially in the ballad than the older sister. The older sister kind of murders her and moves on. But the fact that her voice has to be put into a harp in order for her to get to tell her story, there's definitely something there. She's not getting, to get her justice, she has to, an instrument has to be imbued with magic. That's not...
no, exactly.
Yeah, there's something, there is an injustice to the way these women's stories are told.
Absolutely. And that's actually, as you pointed out, that is the ballad that is baked into the story, and I wanted to show that the idea of Sistersong, a sister song, in which case it's kind of my title in a way for the To Our Sisters ballad. It's this this quite damaging ballad which doesn't tell the whole story, which erases certain people from the story, and which portrays the two leading women in actually quite damaging lights, and possibly the sort of light that might stem from a more patriarchal view of women. So there are these questions. These are big, juicy issues that many writers address, and I hope that they don't bother people over the head. They don't rear up too much actually in the book, because I've never want to come across as like preachy or anything, but I will say that there are I did go into the writing with these ideas, because we talk about them so much on the podcast. We talk about where women are now and where they have been and what they've got in front of them and how they're constantly portrayed in media and whether that's getting better, and there's just so much to talk about still.
Excellent. So yeah, there's a harp evolving beneath you. This is basically the opposite design of the alien. This is with the ribcage on top, so this is the more natural right way up, and this is sort of, I actually did this design in kind of rough when I did the alien design, and we kind of looked at both of them and said, look, the alien's not right. This feels more right. You get to see me colouring in with my lovely shading pens now. This is exciting.
Oh, love a shading pen.
Shading pens. They're great, these. But one of the things I started to feel about it more and more, I think it's funny because drawings do emerge, and you draw them and you sketch them, and as they get more and more solid, that's when you start seeing things about them. Like, you don't see those things necessarily at the first point. You see it when you've got the whole thing in front of you. The more I coloured this in, the more I thought it's too human. You're not going to look at that and accidentally see a harp. You're going to look at that and see a human skeleton. So this one ultimately, this is the one you get to see the full video of, but really it just didn't, it's too real. And it needs to have that ambiguity about it, and this just, it doesn't. It's a full human. And I think that's, if it is, it needs to have this distinction from a human being. There needs to be that disconnect in order for the story to really work.
Yeah, that's absolutely what we were saying. So it's interesting here. You were like, this is the total alien harp.
Well, it's the other way up. The alien was the ribcage down. This is ribcage up. I just flipped it.
But in a way, it genuinely is also, because, like, the alien harp is too alien, but this one is too human. So we need to have a melding too. We need to It shouldn't look alien, it shouldn't look human, it should look like someone should go, whoa, fuck, is that a spine?
Yeah.
Oh my god, why is that harp? Why does that harp have a spine?
Yeah, it's a really hard balance to tread while also still making it a musical instrument. I mean, sort of designing this has made me realise when no one's made a bone harp.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, this is...
Hey,
but you're going to be the first one to make a bone work. Okay, no, or real bone, but you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could actually say my friend's dad, who is a retired spinal surgeon.
We actually get some real.
So my friend sent me a load of pictures, like a full, like three-dimensional 360 pictures of real spine pieces the other day, so I could model off those. Really useful.
How do you know these people who have contacts all over the place? It's really useful.
Well, I didn't know that was his standard, but he was just like, we were having like, you know, a friendly Zoom catch up just with friends. And I was kind of modelling a spine piece or a vertebrae as we were chatting. As you do. I needed to do a test run. And he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, modelling a spine. He was like, oh, I've got some spine pieces. Do you want photographs? I was like, yes!
That'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
Did you explain what the spine piece was for?
I did explain what the spine piece was for, because
What were their faces like?
Well, I will admit their faces were better than when I said I'm modelling a spine piece, because that was just like, okay.
At least you've given a reason, and it's not totally weird. Like, it's a bit weird, but it's not like dark.
Yeah, you know, I'm not weird, honest. I just spend my weekends crafting spines. Well, this is my next 6 months is crafting a full size skeleton, or semi full size, because she's how old in the book?
She's 15.
She's 15, so you know there's a lot of measurement
really
things
harsh.
going on.
I feel terrible. She's a child. I killed a child.
You killed a child. I mean, sort of by 6th century standards, she'd be an adult.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
By 6th century standards, that was she was ready to be married off.
She's an old maid by that point, surely.
Yeah, no, my God, I'd be a grandmother. Great grandmother. Both be.
Note plays saying, I am crafting spines for the art. Yes, this is going to be my battle cry over the next 6 months. It's for art, honest. I'm not weird. I mean, it would be weirder if I was making it out of a real spine. I'm sure actually I did find I found I was looking for a spine model today, and I found a Victorian anatomy class, like spine and rib cage, and for sale on eBay. And I don't know if it was real bone, but it looked very disturbing. It's way more real bone than our current ones are.
Well, this is the Victorians, so I mean, I wouldn't put anything.
It's true. Yes, it was about the amount of money that I'd expect to pay for a human skeleton. Not that I know how much one pays for a human skeleton.
Not that I would know such a thing. No. Why would you think that?
Brittany says, I had to take the dog out, and I come back to, I killed a child. So Brittany's just walked away from the street. Sorry, Brittany. Welcome back. Killed a child. I was saying that the character who gets turned into a harp in Sistersong is 15 at the time, which is, by current modern standards, a child.
I felt bad. I felt bad about it because she's a child, but not by like, you know,
historic standards. How do you find killing characters? Do you get emotional about it, or are you kind of like, you know it's going to happen and you're kind of like, fine?
No, I cried. I cried. Yeah, actually, the bit that made me cry the most was then discovering her body, like, because she actually gets, you know, pushed in a river, and obviously gets kind of drowned in the river, and the river washes her up, and that scene, writing the scene where they find her body and knowing that she's gone and she will not be coming back. Oh God, you know, that was horrible to write. I was just actually making myself cry.
So there's really no kind of disconnect for you as an author. You're as invested as these characters as anyone is.
Yeah, there's no disconnect. Yeah, I wish sometimes there was disconnect, because I tell you when you really wish there was. So sex scenes, right? Like sometimes either authors love them or they hate them. I'm ambivalent, because usually I write them and I go, yeah, that's that's pretty good, pretty hot. And then you come back and you go, oh my god, nobody can see this. Did anyone see this? Delete. And I do this about 5 or 6 or 7 times. I just rewrite and rewrite.
Does it give you that horror of feeling like some sort of fan fiction you wrote when you were 16?
Yeah. You were so careful. Because actually sex is really icky, and trying to make it sound very romantic is actually quite difficult. But nobody wants to read about any of them. They don't want to. They, you can't use words like moist, which is the most horrible word
Moist
in the
is a
English
terrible
language.
word.
Or member. I mean, seriously, who uses member? But no, yes, you just avoid body parts. Mostly.
There is
only the romantic body parts.
There's a great film on called is it called The First Time? It's like a teen rom-com, but it's it starts off as this traditional romance, and it's these 2 teens and sleep together for the first time, and they sleep together for the first time, and it's terrible. And it's basically the aftermath of like how these 2 characters deal with kind of being completely in love, but the fact that sex, when you first have sex, is terrible.
I have something to say about this because this is a Sistersong thing. I do have a sex scene, and it is a first time scene.
Oh.
And I am sick to death of reading first time sex scenes where it's so wonderful and they're so in love and it was amazing. So I was like, right, I'm going to write it as it really is because I am enough.
Bit awkward, quite uncomfortable, bit embarrassing.
Yeah. It's like, no, actually, nobody said how bad this could actually get. And now it's like, oh dear, we can't, look at each other. But yeah, I just thought I have to write this. I have to be true to life because this, I'm writing a historical book. Think about it in the period. Everything was really cold. For starters, it was really, really cold, and
you don't want to take your clothes off. It's not fun.
Oh no, you really don't. And so you're probably not that comfortable to begin with, and you don't. If you're a young woman who doesn't really know what to expect, and your lover isn't, maybe that he's a bit impatient. This is what's going to happen, and I'm just so fed up with these books where you get these sex scenes where they're so wonderful and everything is. I was like, yeah, I'm not.
Unrealistic expectations.
Unrealistic expectations. I'm actually not going to go.
I mean, again, this is a bit like your whole thing of Sistersong and Breaking the Glass Slipper is that telling the untold story and telling the kind of redressing the lies that we all tell ourselves, and we kind of these global lies that kind of we put out, and we're like, why are we still doing this, everyone?
Yeah, why are we still saying these things? There's one image and the truth is another thing.
Wonderful historical. There's a film called Princess de Montpensier, beautiful French film. But of course, she's a princess, so she gets married off, and and is it 16th or 17th century? And so, because they're both from quite high up families, her and her husband are watched by all the staff and their fathers on their first time, and then the sheets are presented to the whole family. To prove and it's the most awkward sex scene I've ever seen on film, but it's brilliant because historically it's correct.
Okay, I almost need to check this out now.
It's a great film. That one is brilliant. I'd recommend Princess de Montpensier. It's a lovely costume drama and it's just beautiful and romantic, but that scene stuck with me so much because I was like, oh, but I was like, but it is spot on.
Yeah, I know. Well, and this is a massive tangent because
we'll come back to harps in a minute.
But the tangent, the reason why I went on it is because about disconnect. And I kind of wish this is what you have to do. So when you're in the same thing that you're writing, a grieving scene, so that you want your heart to be kind of open, but you need to remember that this is a book and people are reading it, and you've got to try and get this grief across in words that other people can understand. So this is the same thing with sex scenes. So you have to when you're writing any sort of scene that is full of high emotion, you kind of want to you need to be in there to feel it, but you also need to have this disconnect with I'm a writer and I need to be editing this. And I have to say, one of the most embarrassing parts of when I was just starting out, I'm a bit better, but I still get a bit now. Sending it to my editor and knowing that she's reading the sex scene.
They're reading that scene.
Oh my god, it's so embarrassing. It's just so embarrassing.
Oh,
Should be used to it by now, but nobody gets used to it.
Note plays going back to things like I killed a child, saying Becky's definitely not on any watch lists. I'm probably on a lot of watch lists. Some of the research I did when I was working in films, like, can you kill someone with a flare gun? Because that was something I needed to know for a script. Like, all of us who create stories are on, I'm sure, on a lot of lists, because the stuff we have to Google to check if it's possible, or to check how it's possible. Like, there's a wonderful resource it's from an ex-criminologist, and he basically writes about how the body decomposes over time. So, like, if you find a body after 2 weeks, how decomposed will it be? And he gives, like, all the breakdowns of, like, what the weather and how that affects. And that's a wonderful resource. Because we
Do you
need
know
to
what?
know
I
these
had
things.
to Google that myself for book 3. I had to say, stages of decomposition. How stiff is stiff?
Yes, rigor mortis. How rigor mortis?
How do you still move? If this body was a walking corpse, how flexible would it be?
Like, because no one ever addresses our zombies' arms just snapping off because they've gone so rigid. Like, that's not properly addressed in zombie film.
I know these things.
Natalie's saying harps can wait. We're talking about historically and emotionally accurate sex scenes. You are correct. Harps can wait. This is important stuff.
It is important stuff. Yeah, I'm glad to. I'm wonderful. Thank you for the film recommends, because now I can go and check out something that is historically accurate and awkward and not feel bad about my own recreation of awkward first time.
I think it's good. I hope it's good. It's important that with these things are not all lies, that we're not all perpetrating the myth. I really hope at some point I'm going to stop drawing this. This is a timed video, by the way, and I hope at some point I'm going to stop drawing this harp, because there's some other things on the end of this video that I'm really hoping are going to come in before we hit 8 o'clock.
You're like, stupid past me.
Why am I still drawing the harp? Stop it, honestly.
We get the picture. There's too many ribs.
Especially since this isn't the... Like, I filmed this one because I really thought it was going to be the harp. So I was like, right, this is the one we film. And it's not the harp.
Are you actually going to show a picture at the end of the harp?
Yes.
The other one? Oh, good.
Yes,
I feel like it would be a massive anticlimax.
Like, hey, we didn't show it!
Actually, we showed you all the reject art, not the final design.
Actually, I could bring in a harp. Can I do that? Well, if I break everything, I'm very sorry, everyone. Like, I could now break the whole thing. But I feel like this video has run longer than I was expecting, so we'll try and bring in the harp as we've got it, and then we'll maybe come back to this. Add new source instead. Add source. Right, browse. Right, let's go to my Sistersong folder and find a harp.
It is a very lovely picture.
Oh, it's gone big now, and it will...
Shading.
Right, let's put it underneath there and just scale it down. Fit so it's Lucy and I can still talk. I got a new mouse today, and it's a trackball, and I've not quite adjusted to using it, so this is taking me longer than it should, but my other mouse broke, so here we go. This is the new harp. So yeah, basically ripped all the ribs out. So yeah, this is the last one I sent you, Lucy. So on your Twitter timeline.
I can just go and see on my Twitter.
Yeah. So this is the one I sent you this morning, which suffers a bit from again overly large pelvis. I don't know why I keep enlarging the pelvis. But yeah, this is it's very close to the final design, but in a second the video should get to the point I want it to, which will show you the 3D model I've now got of the harp design.
Oh, even I haven't seen that. So.
No, that was done at literally like 20 minutes before the stream. Just like, yeah, I wasn't last minute prepping at all. So yeah, this is pretty near the final, but It's just a bit out of proportion, and ribs in slightly wrong places and things, and length of breastbones and things. Like it got to that point where I was like, this is not. Oh, I think now our video's caught up. Hang on. Hey, there we go. We're back on track. Yeah, it doesn't, like, the proportions are not quite right in it. So I got to the point where I was like, in order to get this correct, I really need a model skeleton to get all the proportions correct. And teaching, like, you can buy a Halloween skeleton, but they are not well proportioned. And you can buy but teaching skeletons are so much money.
How much are they? Come on,
like,
spill it.
250 quid.
Woo!
For, like, that's a low price teaching skeleton.
Wow.
And I was like,
hey, has anyone got a teaching skeleton to hand?
So what I ended up doing was buying a 3D model of a skeleton and then, like, bending it and shaping it, which, you know, ended up costing me 12 quid. So that was kind of better, and meant I could, like, spin it in digital. And Ali and Etches had just popped back in to say, yes, I do. I have a skeleton. She's, of course you do. No, so here we go. Lucy, if you find a way to put the YouTube back up on your feed in a couple of minutes when the lag has stopped, you will see a 3D model of a skeleton of the harp. This doesn't have strings on just because I ran out of time. But yeah, this is, I don't know why it's red. My model went red. I do apologise. But this is a full 3D model of the harp shape. So
that is very exciting. I can't wait. Thank you, lag, for denying me the 3D model.
So yeah, this is, you know, really getting that breastbone, and that, like, the breastbone has, like, connected bits of the ribs, and then they're designed to actually snap in places. So they're kind of snapped in the places they'd be designed to snap. So they haven't got ragged edges. They've got that kind of natural shape to them, and then that kind of lower rib is still there and has actually been, like, pulled down to the bottom. So there is a bit of kind of manipulation and violence to it, but without looking really edgy and macabre and horror-esque. So yeah, I think this is the final harp design.
I think it's really cool. I really like the slight what's the word? They're kind of like sinew. It's like you've got a bit of sinew going on.
Yeah,
you know, I like that because there's I do mention the sinew. Sinew is a word that's actually in the book. I feel like this is true to the harp.
She hadn't told me that before. Now I've got to work in sinew.
No, it's basically binding the strings to the pegs with the sinew to make them stay.
That's gone very badly wrong, but that is actually a close-up of... that looks terrible. That hasn't shrunk in my video edit at all, but this is actually the first test vertebrae that I started building. That is just a test run of my clay technique. But yeah, so that is where we are, everyone, and that's our first stream on the harp project. Which, you know, hopefully has given you an insight into Sistersong. Sistersong, Lucy, where can people pre-order Sistersong from?
Oh yeah, if you want to, like, make me very make my I can which is also very cool. You can pre-order Sistersong from, well, any of, like, the big evil, we won't call the giant corporation, but, you know, you can order it from there. You can order it from Waterstones. You can order it from, I think, Hive are getting their pre-orders sorted. You can also pre-order it from the new bookshop.org website, which is supporting all the independent bookshops currently shut through lockdown. So
can we just check, is it only UK at the moment?
At the moment, yeah, it's just out in the UK. Fingers crossed. There's news.
Yeah, as soon as it becomes available, we'll let you know.
So yeah, fingers crossed that it might be available in the US, but at the moment it's just UK, and that is next April. So yeah, if you want to give it a pre-order, that'd be amazing. I think it's going to look very nice.
So yeah,
I've heard whispers of gold foil and hardback.
So yeah,
it's the word that every writer likes to hear.
We'll be streaming every month until the book comes out, which is in April, and we'll be making the harp and talking, you know, more about the book and about Lucy's writing process. So if you are interested in writing, or you've got other people you know who are interested in the writing process,
bring your questions.
Bring questions, bring people, spread the word. yeah, we hope to see more of you. There are links, names on screen for following Lucy on Instagram or Twitter. Are those the best places to keep on track with you, Lucy?
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter. I do have a Facebook page, but nobody hangs out there. So.
And I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Patreon if anyone really wants to support my making. Yeah, so that's us for stream 1. Thank you everyone for joining. We will see you next month.
Yes, you can order through Becky.
Can we?
Yes.
What? No.
Order through Becky.
No, no. No. Order through reputable websites.
Becky takes all my orders.
Look, I have enough on my plate without being a bookseller as well. Look, I love you guys and I'd love to supply you with books, but there are people who will deliver to you. Please get them to deliver to you, not me. Thank you. I have my own stuff to do. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I've had a lot. We had a lot of fun.
I've had a lot of fun. It's been a good chat, and I think it's nice, there's a lot of book craft and some other things that you'll get to learn in these streams that maybe we haven't had in traditional craft streams before. So, we hope to see you next month. We'll announce the exact date for next month's stream sort of in a couple of weeks, because we're still hammering out some details. But yeah, we'll be here every month until April. So thank you, and everyone stay safe, and we'll see you all soon.